Hello, everybody. Welcome to our show.
Hello,
We're very
hello.
calm today because we were speaking in turns today. In
Yes.
short, two. Both have emergencies. Mr. Coy has a family emergency, and Mr. Lee had a work emergency.
Hmm.
Anyway, back to my normal man voice. Forget that. So y'all
Uh,
gonna have to live with us two Negroids,
that's
at
right.
least for now.
Hey,
And
it's good because we can say whatever we want about black people because we're allowed
that's
to
right.
do
We
that.
black. We black.
We black.
We black. We decided something, y'all, to make everything pan out properly. We have decided that what we're going to do is tackle MLK today, JFK on Wednesday, and then RFK on Friday. Because if you're not going to go through each of them properly, there could be issues.
Yes.
Um, and so what we want to do is break it down, break it down, break it down.
Wrote a
Now,
song about it.
huh?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
What the files be saying about RF about MLK are quite
Mm,
interesting, to say
very.
the least. Um, and there are going to be people who do not agree, because you're going to hear stuff that may um, upset you, break norms down, and what you know about MLK might be put it might put you off. Okay, so I want people to understand we get it. We do understand that it may not be something you want to admit. Okay, but we have to get to the place where we can be analytical about this and compare it to what he himself said. We're not just going to take the FBI or the CIA or any one of them three-letter agencies' word for what they discovered about him. We want to discuss more than that. Um, in the archives, I did not. Maybe you might have seen something, Mike. Did you see anything about his actual assassination?
I saw not the actual. No, I didn't see anything about the actual assassination
Okay.
personally.
Now, what it did do was confirm some stuff we knew about him, which puts him, to me, in the category. This is just me. It puts him in the category of a liar, but not just any regular liar. It puts him in a very dangerous liar category.
Hmm.
That he had a really good way of infusing his communist ideas into his religious ideas while at the same time trying to tell people it is not what he was doing.
Yep.
Um, and that, I think, that is the worst part of it. So we're going to take a gander at this real quick. A total of 3,165 pages have been released.
Oof.
Okay. But what we are going to go over is the initial portion of it, because we can't dive into all 3,000 pages here. That would take us more than a month to go through everything. We would love to. We would love to spend hours doing it. But let's read. It says 221 pages of the files copied from the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., covering Martin Luther King. Files are the contents of 201-page 1977 report by a Department of Justice task force summarizing the FBI's Martin Luther King Jr. security and assassination investigations. On November 1st, 75, former FBI Assistant Director, Domestic Intelligence Division, William Sullivan, said King was a target of an intensive campaign by the FBI to neutralize him as an effective civil rights leader. Sullivan stated that in the war against King, no holds were barred. This, in part, led to the Department of Justice investigation report. Coverage includes events surrounding April 4th, 1968, FBI investigation of the assassination, James Earl Ray, FBI surveillance, and harassment of King, his associates, family, and audios. Stanley Levison 1977 pages of files copied from the FBI headquarters and archived on CD-ROM covering Stanley Levison. The FBI conducted a security investigation of Stanley Levison from the 1950s through the 1970s. Levison was a close and key advisor to Martin Luther King Jr. In time, the FBI used surveillance of Levison to gather information on King. The files indicate that Levison's office was bugged. Memos report that discussions between King and Levison. Files give insight to planning and strategy of various events of King's life, including the March on Washington and King's Nobel Peace Prize speech preparation. The FBI expressed concern of how close Leviston, who the FBI constantly referred to as secret member of the Communist Party, and King had become. Files indicated that sometime after the Department of Justice contacted King about Levison's communist ties, King ended direct contact with him. The files show heightened concern when Levison began to advise King on the Vietnam conflict. Internal security memos indicate that soon thereafter, Levison's home was also bugged. Memos detail information learned.
Can't hear you.
Okay, better now?
Yeah. Yep.
Where did you last hear? Where did I hear?
Information. You said information, then it went bloom.
All right.
There's a
how
little
long
line in
was
there
that?
about information. Livingston.
I don't even know where that is. Let me see. I'll start over from here. Memos, reports on the discussion between King and Levison. Files give insight on planning and strategy on various events in King's life, including the March on Washington and King's Nobel Peace Prize speech preparation. The FBI expressed concern on how close Leviston, who was the FBI constantly referred to as a secret member of the Communist Party, and King had become. Files indicated that sometime after the Department of Justice contacted King about Levison's communist ties, King ended direct contact with him. The files have heightened concern when Levison began to advise King on the Vietnam conflict. Internal security memos indicate that soon thereafter, Levison's home was also bugged. Memos detail information. That's what it probably was. Information learned about King through a tap on Levison's phone. After King's assassination, the file chronicled Levison's dealing with Coretta Scott King and other civil rights leaders. Roy Wilkins, 967 pages of files copied from the FBI headquarters in Washington, D.C., and archived on the CV-ROM covering Roy Wilkins. Roy Wilkins was an influential member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. He was a civil rights advocate who became affiliated with Martin Luther King Jr. Files contain information concerning Wilkins' proximity to various civil rights events from 1950 through the 1970s. The FBI investigated threats against Wilkins' life and proposed extortion plots. Files contain circumscribed information on King. Now, I want to point something out here, please. We'll come back to it. We've been telling people for a long time, haven't we, Michael?
Yep.
That the NAACP and all of these civil rights people were at their core communist. We tried telling people this forever ago when we started covering all of this stuff, when we did the whole wars throughout America and we covered the 1965 civil rights bill. We told people all of the impact that this was going to yield came from communist ideas. Nobody wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to hear that. We tried telling folks that the majority of the reasons they wanted to have this idea of inclusion was part of the communist push. And it worked. It worked. Everything now is based, and now you're seeing the full fruit of communism pervasive everywhere.
Yep.
This is exactly how they crept it in, which is why when we covered the 1965 version of the Civil Rights Bill, you have all these other people conglomerated into it. We said the first iteration of it wasn't communistic enough for them.
Mm-hmm.
They had to put it on the back burner, on the back burner, on the back burner. And finally, they got the person that they wanted to push it, not the FBI, but the communists within the FBI got exactly what they wanted.
Mm-hmm.
They got Martin Luther King, who was, and for all intents and purposes, was communicating with communists. Now, if you think that he wasn't a communist, we have more information about that. What's your thoughts on that?
About him being a communist?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's always been the goal, and it's still the goal today, as you see. It's always been to push a communist agenda on the people. You know, when it comes to black people have always been pretty conservative,
Mm-hmm.
throughout history. So they had to push an ideology under the guise of Christianity, and they had to get a reverend in there to push an ideology using a movement, i.e., civil rights, with communist ideology hidden within it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going on today, as we can see right now at this moment.
And it worked.
Yep.
Worked like a charm. Like, look, he went down as a martyr.
Mm-hmm.
I even had heard this man being quoted in church. That's how people were just wham and bamboozled by this.
Yep.
Goes on. Files chronicle a meeting between Wilkins and an agent at FBI headquarters concerning threats by J. Edgar Hoover to expose King as a sexual degenerate. The agent told Wilkins that Hoover did not want to destroy the entire civil rights movement, but that the FBI deeply and bitterly resented lies and falsehood told by King. The agent told Wilkins that the FBI was not responsible for the rumors against King, but said, "We certainly in a position to substantiate them." The agent intimated that if King's criticism of the FBI and J. Edgar Hoover did not end, this would be the result. Man. Man. Now, here's the thing, okay? The craziest part of all of this is that the biggest issue we have concerning MLK is this concept that he was a voice of the unvoiced. I think that's how he made sure to position himself, was the voice of the unvoiced. But was he? Not for a moment. Not for a moment. If you go back and read any of his words and preachings, you'll understand firsthand that this guy was not who he said he was on the front. As for Hoover,
that guy.
What are your thoughts on that one?
Him dealing with Hoover. Hoover was very corrupt, and as you stated, Martin Luther King wasn't this squeaky clean pastor that everybody thought he was. There was an agenda behind that. The whole civil rights movement, everything, putting that man in the forefront as a reverend, as a Christian, as they knew black people held Christianity and religion to their heart. They had to put that face out there. And behind the scenes, he wasn't squeaky clean. And Hoover and FBI and all these people had a lot of dirt on this man. They had a lot of dirt because he was doing some stuff behind the scenes while getting in front of people, talking about he was this righteous man, this Christian man for the small people, but he was doing things that he shouldn't have been doing, which I think we're going to get into.
Yeah, I'm going to have you guys listen to his own statements, okay? This is not mine. If people want to assume that somehow the FBI, all of them, were wrong about MLK, let's go with that. The FBI were wrong about MLK. Now, the question is, are you going to ask yourself, is MLK wrong about MLK? Okay. I want you to ask yourself, is he wrong about himself? Okay. All right, cool. Here we go. Listen carefully. This is from his own book. Okay. His own little sermon thing. Okay. This is called Communism's Challenge to Christianity. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We must admit that we as Christians have often lagged behind at this point. Slavery would not have existed in America for more than 250 years if the church had not sanctioned it. The church sanctioned slavery? Where in the world would Martin Luther King get that from? Just ask yourself this simple question. Where would he have gotten this idea, this thought process to say the church sanctioned slavery?
Would it be the Communist Manifesto?
It would be the Communist place,
yes,
wouldn't it?
Communist Manifesto, yeah.
Here's the problem. The majority of people, I would say nearly 80% of the people that supported the abolition of slavery were clergymen. So I don't know where he's getting this nonsense
That is
from.
true.
Like, I don't even know where you got that nonsense from. That's insane to me. Let him continue. Segregation and discrimination could not exist in America today without the sanction of the church. I am ashamed and appalled at the fact that 11 o'clock on Sunday morning is the most segregated hour in Christian America. How tardy we have been. The church has too often been an institute serving to crystallize the patterns of the status quo. Who can blame Karl Marx for calling such a religion an opiate? Come on now.
Isn't he a reverend?
When religion becomes involved in a future good over yonder, that it forgets the present evils over here, it is as dry as dust, religion, and needs to be condemned. We must be concerning about the gulf between wealth and abject poverty. Marx revealed the danger of the profit motive as the sole basis. What?
So I have a question. So would you assume or think that Martin King was kind of a plant?
Definitely.
He was acting as a reverend, again, as to get Black people to listen to him. Would you think that?
I think he started off with good intention of becoming a minister. When I've read some of his letters in his exchange between him and Coretta, I've read some of his letters while he was in so-called seminary. His viewpoints switched drastically after coming in contact with the so-called social side of the gospel. And what he started doing was looking at a way to see whether or not the communistic viewpoint could intermingle with the Christian viewpoint. Now, initially, he would say, you can't be a full-on communist and be a Christian. The reason I figured out why he said that is because his view of Christianity was completely skewed, as you can tell by his talk about how he views Christianity. So with that view of Christianity, of course, you can't connect communism and that Christianity. So he has to make a separation of who he was as a Christian and how much he admired the idea of communism, but he wouldn't come out and directly tell you that we have to adopt communism. That's the crazy part.
He would lose the Black vote.
He would lose the religious base.
Yeah, he would lose that base, the Black religious base, if he came out and said that.
Right. So here, you'll hear it right here. Communism also challenges us to invite all Christian forces for action. Too often we have been preoccupied with debates about orders and sacraments and rituals and denominationalism, while civilization is engaged in a race with catastrophe. If we are to win the world, here he goes. If we are to win the world to Christ, we must rise above our differences, realizing that we have unity of purpose and that God is not a denominational God. Now, while that is true, hear me out. Look at what he says. He is viewing Christianity as a social item. He says we must rise above our differences, realizing that we have one unity of purpose. No, we don't. I will tell you right now, religion, as far as Christianity goes, does not have the same purpose as the world or the goals of the world. Please do not conflate the two. They are not the same, and they will never be the same. Now, you may have factions of religion that will share in a worldview, but Christianity does not do that, like at all. If you were to read the book, it doesn't do that, which is why he had to negate the whole other forces out there and say, oh, our unity has to be in our goals, what we want to accomplish. And who does that? Communism.
Yes. You know, and when he said, you know, God is not a denomination, as you stated, he is correct. But that's pretty much trying to get all religions to get rid of their denomination and just fall under, you know, one God. And that God would be communism. Whatever the communists said your God is, get rid of your Christianity, your Catholicism, get rid of your Islam, and fall under this one thing under communism, which is, you know, God under communism, whoever they decide that is.
It is interesting to me that he spent most of the letter trying to justify his viewpoint of accepting communism, while at the same time trying to retain all of the believers at the time that he was trying to reach out to. And look, he did it. You got to give the man his credit. He pulled it off. He pulled it off. To this very day, MLK is viewed as one of the biggest aid in helping black folk get their rights, and he did it with the help of God.
And black folks didn't even know what they were signing. They didn't even know what they were signing up for.
They didn't,
because he was using it under the umbrella of Christianity. He was speaking their language while speaking communism at the same time. You know, you could speak communism and throw God out there all day. What did the black folk? What were they hearing? They were hearing God.
They're hearing God.
They weren't hearing everything else tied to it. All they heard was God, love, all, you know, everything that deals with Christianity. But they were actually buying into communism and Marxism.
You want proof? You want proof that it was the case? How many today that follow the BLM type mindset say that too? That God wants this, and God wants equality, and God wants blah blah blah, and God wants blah blah. Al Sharpton, how many? The Reverend this, and they all preach the same thing as MLK did. And when you watch their life, they have all the money. The MO of communism, the ones telling you about equality, have you outranked in every way.
That's right.
They pulled it off. They pulled it off. MLK was a grifter. I hate to break it to you Negroes, but he was a grifter. He was a liar. I don't even care about his social and sexual life. I don't care about that. That's beside that's the least of the damage he did. That's between him and Coretta. That ain't got nothing to do with me. That might be true. He might have been a male whore. I don't know. All I do know is this. The man lied to y'all black people. I have a dream. He didn't have no dream. What he did have was a plan. I'll tell you, the man had a plan. He had a plan. He had a mad plan. It was a crazy good plan, and he succeeded in doing it. He convinced, and now here's the thing. This makes that 65 civil rights bill even more heinous, which is why we want it to go away.
Yep.
It does not provide equality. It provides a lazy outlet for people. Sorry to have to say this to folk, but civil rights, it packaged real well. It was packaged real well. But all it was segregation 2.0. It was segregation 2.0, and it worked. Look at today. You can't touch that. That's black culture. You can't say that. That's black. You can't. But I thought we were talking about equality here. Isn't that what y'all say MLK was about? Huh? Isn't that what y'all say? So where's the segregation come in? Because y'all did so stupid, you fell for the okie doke. To quote your little black Jesus guy, you fell for the okie doke. They got you good. And now when you watch people like BLM now, it's a surprise that they say they have Marxist ties. It's not a surprise. That was the thing from the beginning. MLK set that up, and he set it up well. He real good. He was really good at what he did.
Yeah, and you know, they put him in jail, and then they got him out, and everything has a purpose. They threw him in jail, and then the party that wanted the votes is the party that got him out, because they needed that black vote. And they used MLK, and they got exactly what they wanted. Just like LBJ said, I'm going to have these Negroes voting Democrat for the next 200 years. And he used MLK to do that, and it worked.
It worked.
Yep.
It worked. And it worked. C'est magnifique. It works so well that if you don't vote that way, you ain't even black.
Nope. You ain't black. You're a sellout. You're a coon. You're Uncle Tom. You're a Sambo. Whatever word that they throw out there. That's how brainwashed this generational brainwashing has worked. This is how good it's worked. Let you say something about MLK. Just go anywhere black and mention MLK. They be ready to tie you up by your toes.
Man.
Speaking on him.
Strung up.
That's how bamboozled they are.
You'd be done for, man. Done for.
And even with this, what Marlon and I are going over, you'll get a lot of black folks that won't even look at it, because they don't want the rally. They don't want the reality changed. You know, they don't want to see the truth. They want to live in their illusion of MLK civil rights. That's about as much as they know. MLK civil rights. I have a dream. They don't want to know nothing else outside of that.
Craziness.
Hoodwink.
The memorandum. Reference is made to the enclosed material in which the director has written. The memo reminds me vividly of those I received when Castro took over Cuba. You contended that Castro and received when Castro and his cohorts were not communist and not influenced by communists. Time alone proved you wrong. I, for one, can't ignore the memos that King et al. Having only infinitesimal effect on the efforts to exploit the American Negro by the communists. It worked, people. It worked. The director is correct. We are completely wrong about believing the evidence was not sufficient to determine some years ago that Fidel Castro was not a communist or under communist influence. On investigating and writing about communism and the American Negro, we had better remember this and profit by the lesson it should teach us. I do not think much of the difficulty relating to the memorandum, rightly questioned by the director to be found centered in the word influence. We do not have, and no government agency or private organization has, any yardstick which can accurately measure influence in this particular context, even when we know it does exist, such as in the case of the obvious influence over Martin Luther King and King's influence over the Negro. Other Negro leaders. Personally, I believe in the light of King's powerful demagogic speech yesterday, and he stands head and shoulders above all other Negro leaders put together when it comes to influencing great masses of Negroes. We must mark him now, if we have not done so before, as the most dangerous Negro of the future in this nation from the standpoint of communism, the Negro, and national security.
You know, this makes me think about how there's a lot of people out there, and I was guilty of it. That was like, MLK was a Republican, you know, and the reason they say he's Republican because of the Christian side of it.
Yep.
But now we all know what he really was. You know what he really was. He was a communist, and we're all guilty of it, man. Not all, but a lot of us are guilty of it. We respected the man for what he accomplished. But when you start looking at these documents, you start understanding. You start looking past the lies, and you understand what his real goal was. And it wasn't just him; it was the help of many others. But we knew what the goal was, and it was to adopt communism.
But here's the thing: it's more than what they say. What he says about himself is the kicker. He himself watched and understood from a distance what communism was, but still valued communism. In his early days, that's what his viewpoint was. Yeah, I can see the dangers of it, but we need to embrace their enthusiasm. His words, not mine. The instance you can look at something like that, I know for sure I'm guilty of this. I would look at these leftist crazy people and said maybe we should adopt their tactics of being at least as energetic in their cause as they are. But if we were that way, we'd be misguided.
Mm-hmm.
Because they operate purely out of emotion.
Yep.
We cannot afford to be in that position at all. At all. The problem here is why people may think that he did not reject communism. In fact, he sought to find a way to the public for them to accept both Christianity and communism in some middle ground. That was his goal.
Yes. Because he knew he couldn't just tell black people to give up Christianity. A lot of them would walk away from that because the other party wouldn't have been talking like that. So he had to keep that Christian base while, again, slowly putting in communism, as Marlon stated, to kind of find some middle ground to where they accept both. But at the end of the day, they want you to put communism over faith.
Yeah. Yeah. And there it is. That is what it is that I think he did well. He was the only man that I remember that could interlace all of the right-wing ideologies and all of the left-wing ideologies and present you with something that you would buy. Because let's not forget that both sides viewed him as a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Both the people that were extreme liberals and leftists and those who were extreme on the conservative side. They saw him as a stand-up Negro looking out for the benefits of the black race, right? The conservatives did. Mm-hmm. The other side looked at him as one trying to abolish racism, right? Because they thought the Christian right, loved racism. And you'll have that proven out in his statements about what he thought the church projected, right? He said it wouldn't be racism and it wouldn't be slavery if the church didn't sign off on it. If that's true, why did he sign up to become a minister? Hear me out. If you genuinely believe that the church itself, as its core, is the reason that slavery and racism exist, but you became a minister only to try and incorporate communism into it, were you really a Christian? No. But you saw a good opening to do what you needed to get done.
That's right.
Real slick. Why do you guys think MLK risked his life to do this and leave his wife? I don't think he was ever with his wife and kids to begin with. I don't think he cared about them. That's just me. And I don't think he thought he was risking his life. I don't think he thought he was risking his life. I don't think he saw himself to become a martyr. I don't believe that for a minute. I do not see him thinking, oh, they can instantly kill me at any point here. I don't think so. I don't think so.
You know, maybe in his mind, he thought he was in the club. You know, he was talking to a lot of bigwigs, a minister, a reverend, you know, was talking to presidents and governors and senators and FBI directors. And he thought probably in his mind, hey, I'm good. I'm feeding them information, whatever he's feeding them behind the scenes. And he probably thought nothing's going to happen to me. I'm protected. And they probably fed that information to him. Nothing's going to happen to you. We got you. So he, like Marlon said, he probably never thought he would wound up dead.
Okay, so let's watch now what this is a letter that someone penned about MLK. Now this person is a sympathizer for communism. Okay, if he was so anti-communism, there would be nothing found that they would like. Here's what they said. The life and example of Martin Luther King Jr. are central to any quest for a better world. In part, he was so effectively illuminated and helped people struggle against the realities of racism, highlighting the link between issues of racial and economic justice. I will argue here that his outlook represents a remarkable blending of Christianity, democratic, and socialist perspectives. Even the communist knew that what he was doing. And you'll note you'll still find people thinking this is a good approach. I will say this right now. There is nothing redeemable about socialism. Nothing. Zero, zilch. It is one of the most dookie perspectives on life, period. Anybody who espouses anything by Karl Marx, you are a worthless human being.
That's right.
I would say it to your face. You are trash. You're worthless. You're dung, scrubbing under feet, fecal matter. That's what you are if you're a communist in any way, shape, form, or fashion. You have nothing to offer society. You're a trash human being. I just want people to understand that's my viewpoint of anyone espousing communism.
Same.
As a Christian, King rejected the humanist atheism of Karl Marx, which he held that man, unaided by any divine power, can save himself and usher in a new society. He insisted that there is a God in the universe who is the ground and essence of all reality, who is a being of infinite love and boundless power, and the creator, sustainer, and conserver of values. You see how much of a humanistic view he even had of God, okay? That are essential to humanity. Man cannot save himself, for man is not the measure of all things, and humanity is not God, King tells us. Bound by the chains of his own sin and finiteness, man needs a savior, King scholar Keith Miller observed. However, that he also refused to repudiate Marxism wholesale. Wow, this guy. In fact, King had a radical orientation from the very beginning of his political career. His widow, Coretta Scott King, noted that within the first month or so of our meeting in 1952, King talked about working within the framework of democracy to move us toward a kind of socialism, arguing that a kind of socialism has to be adopted by our system because the way it is simply unjust. Now, say what y'all want about the FBI and the CIA and the three-letter on this one, they got it right. I don't know who exactly or what, but they got this right because they were watching, listening, but they didn't have to do a whole lot of work. Let's just be honest. If they were even just listening to what he said, they would have understood that he was a communist. He said it. He wrote about it. He's been trying to find ways since his get-go into public light how to incorporate both the God that he say he believed in, but never really gave power to, and the socialist movement that he was applauding for their activity and how strong they were in their beliefs. And today you see black people buying it hook, line, and sinker. You think they'll get out of it?
If they read this document, if they start reading and understanding what he was, some of them might, but a lot of them, they love socialism. They love Marxists. They'll tell you straight up, I'm a socialist, I'm a Marxist, you know. BLM preaches it, and all these other black organizations, NAACP, you know, Black Panthers, you know, BLM, they all preach this, and a lot of black people follow these organizations, not knowing that they're following a Marxist communist ideology that's just leading them to their own demise at the end of the day.
It is going to be an interesting fallout. I'll tell you, I think there'll be a massive fallout. That's just what I think. I think what you'll end up seeing is hopefully, I can only hope this will happen, a waking up. I think there'll be a waking up for some. Do you think he was pushing his own? Of course. Well, yes, because his agenda was to try and make Christianity and communism one thing. Christianism or communistiny. Okay. Communianity. That's what it is.
And the thing is, you know, with Christianity, you know, the God that we believe wouldn't be the same God as I stated earlier. The God in communism, the government is your God. Man is your God. So if he can combine the two and slowly start getting man to recognize communism, and you slowly start taking away the Christianity side of it, before you know it, there are black people in the church praising God, but they're actually not praising the God that they thought they was praising. And that was the goal.
Yeah. And look, for all intents and purposes, right? They accomplished way more with the help of MLK than they had ever thought that they would beforehand. Because remember, we talked about this, the iterations of this civil rights bill that was there before. Originally, it was set up to do a direct thing post slavery.
Yep.
The idea was specifically for those who had been hurt by slavery to find footing. That was the original, very first one in the 1800s. By the time the 1965 version rolled around, it didn't even remotely resemble what it should have been. Not remotely, like at all.
And the thing with Dr. King is that he knew that. He knew when he was fighting for the Civil Rights Act, he knew that it wasn't what it was supposed to be. So he was pushing a Civil Rights Act that he knew that didn't include black people. It included all other people, as we stated many times on here. He knew this. He didn't get up there and tell black people, well, we're going to have gays and lesbians and, white and female women and all these other groups, intermingled with us. So, the dude hoodwinked everyone, bamboozled. But here we are, civil rights, civil rights, civil rights, and most of these black folks don't even know what civil rights means.
The inclusion of everybody's into black people's problems was because of MLK.
Yes.
I want people to understand that the whole reason you have this current iteration with everybody in on it is because of MLK. It is also I think the reason why JFK was ended as well. I think JFK was not going to sign this new iteration of this bill. I think he wasn't going to sign it. And I think they had to find a way to put somebody who would sign it. And the only person that would was the one that towed the company line for the Democrats, and that was LBJ.
Yep.
LBJ signed it happily. Happily. And if you go back and watch the signing of it, and you'll see how MLK looked. He was pleased with himself that he got this thing. He got it through. What he didn't expect, though, I don't think he expected this, was that there would be people who wouldn't go along with it. And so there's some that didn't go along. I'm not advocating for his death at all. I think there was a much better way to handle that. One of it is not listening to him. That would have been the best way, but that didn't happen. But I don't think he foresaw any of the blowback that was coming his way. That's what I think. Do I think the government was behind his assassination? I'm still out on that one. Judging by what they said they know, I wouldn't put it past them to put an end to a communist. If they saw him that way, I could see it. Whether or not they did, still, I mean, I'll have to get to near to the end of the pagings. But if they come out and say, yes, we ended his life because he was a communist, then obviously they were behind it. And people will say, well, why would they make it an excuse about him being a communist? Because communism at the time was a destructive force. It still is. Have people not seen what Havana looked like before Castro? Havana used to be a bustling, beautiful, amazing. Cuba used to be like it. That was the place to be. And then that Trudeau's papa just kicked in and it went to pot. Everything socialism and communism touches dies.
And you got to understand how much, communism was frowned upon. This was only like 20 something years after, World War II. And communism was very frowned upon after the war, during and after that war. So, we were still in that time frame around the 60s where people, they hated communism. They had wanted nothing to do with it because it is, as Martin stated, it's a destructive force.
And they know that too. Now, yes, there was a different act that was proposed. That's the whole point. That's what I'm saying. There was. But mind you, there were more iterations of it. There were at least two before the one proposed in 64 that was signed up in 65. There was a completely different one.
Mm-hmm.
The problem here is I think, this is what I think. I've not proven this out yet. But I believe that JFK saw the new one and was not going to sign it. But they needed it passed.
Yep.
They needed it passed. How? Okay, y'all want me to prove to you that the Democrats liked this idea? Hear me out. What's the one thing Democrats hate more than losing black people?
Yep. That's true.
They hate losing Negroes, man. They hate losing Negroes. They went to war because they lost their Negroes. Okay.
Yep.
So how do you do it? If I'm going to let you go, I'm going to let you go with all kinds of conditions. And if I'm going to sign over your freedom, I'm going to sign your freedom over with everybody. Everybody. I'm going to sign you over all your freedoms, but not only that, I'm going to piggyback homosexuals and women and this and that and religion and everything on your back. You won't be free. You won't be free of me at all. But if you do decide you're going to be cutting free of me, I'm going to make sure that you never get anything out of it. Look at it this way. What did black people actually get from the Civil Rights Bill? Not a thing, right? You got projects. Yep. Okay. So you got projects and you were able to vote. By the way, you could have voted before that. Right? Just, you were voting before that. So let's say, what did you get? Nothing. You got literally nothing from the Civil Rights Bill. So now they can't discriminate against you, right? But you know who now takes more discrimination prowess from you? The gays. The gays have more discriminatory prowess than you. Yep. They can say way more about their plight than yours. And y'all were the ones that went through slavery. And then you elected Black Jesus himself. All right? What did he do for you? Nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
But who did he give it to? He gave it to all of the queers, though.
Yep.
He gave them all kinds of bills. Hate crime bills and all kind of stuff. What'd you get? Oh, look, they passed an anti-lynching bill recently, which was something you couldn't do anyway.
It's already illegal to kill somebody, but
yeah,
you know,
like what?
And that's very interesting because even if you look at, like, let's go way back, 14th Amendment. You notice how, the original 14th Amendment was for who? Freed slaves and children of freed slaves, making them citizens. And then what they start tying on to that? Everybody, because the Democratic Party hates black people. And they said, there's no way we're just going to give this to them. There's no way we're just going to do this for them. Let's start adding on other people. And then through centuries, decades, we were fed this information about the 14th Amendment. Now it comes out that whatever these Democrats are saying about the 14th Amendment has been a lie. Same thing with civil rights. I think there was one in 1960 or 1957. There was one also. And as Marlon stated, it was the original Civil Rights Act. That's why all these Democrats voted against it, because that Civil Rights Act was just for who? Just black people. So when 1965, 64 comes around, they added in all them other people. And what did LBJ, who was racist to his core, he added all them other people and it made him feel better signing off on it.
Not realizing you just signed your own warrant to have nothing given to you ever again. What you were due, you would never get. No matter what you do now, you ain't getting it. No matter what you do. You're hoes now. Now, this question, yes, he did. But at the time he had his problems, he thought that MLK was too passive in his approach. Malcolm wanted to be more militant in his approach. MLK realized, I won't be able to win this with force. He knew, I'll give him this. He understood force wasn't going to win it. He had to do it by coercion. And the best way to coerce people is through religion. He did it right. By the time Malcolm came around to leaving the Muslim Brotherhood, he wasn't for any of it. He realized you can't get your grounding from the government handing it to you. You had to take it yourself.
Yep.
Bootstraps kind of stuff. That was what he eventually came down to. That's why they ended him. Now, tell me this. If Malcolm hadn't died, and I believe the Communist Party is who took out Malcolm, by the way, not the FBI and not the CIA. I honestly believe that it was the black side of communism that took out Malcolm X. If Malcolm X had stayed alive, you would have seen a complete reversal of black America. I think, honestly, because of his mind shift near the end of his life, you would have seen a completely different way of living. You would have seen a completely different way. You would have seen black people standing up for themselves by themselves without the help of the government. They wouldn't even want the government's help. They had to end him. So whereas one person got ended because he had outlived his usefulness, the other one got ended because he was being too useful.
Because they had black people right where they wanted them. They knew once the Civil Rights Act was signed, they said it. You know, they got them. They got them. We're going to give them this, this, and this. We're going to keep our thumb right on them. They knew Malcolm was going to do opposite. And he's going to talk them out of from government assistance, living in ghettos, you know, asking the government for help. And they can't have that because they needed to have control over the black population.
And this is, look, exactly. He saw it was a fraud. He saw many things were a fraud that he believed. And he believed them like wholeheartedly. You ain't never going to find another person as convinced as Malcolm X. Like really convinced that what he was doing was for sure the right thing until. And then once he woke up, all of a sudden now he shows he gets mugged down. Come on. Really? Really? I can see why they had to take him out. I do. But I also understand why they took out MLK too, because they have to create the martyr to keep this thing going. The grift for the difference is the grift for MLK could not continue if he stayed alive. He had to be a martyr. And the other side, you had to take out Malcolm because he would have been a problem. So you got to take both of them out. You got to take both of them out. One was more important to the cause. MLK was. He was projected to the front. You know, realize how they put Malcolm as the radical one?
Yep. And, you know, can you imagine if Malcolm would have started digging into the Civil Rights Act and actually calling it out in front of his base? And actually, like he's been calling out political parties all this time, the left and the right. I mean, he calls them all out. Imagine if he would have took that Civil Rights Act, because, you know, black people just saw the Civil Rights Act. They really didn't look too much into it. They didn't read into it. They just know black people have civil rights. That's all they knew. Malcolm would have dug into it. He was like, wait a minute. This ain't just for black people. They didn't want that. They was like, oh, no. This guy's too militant. We can't have that. So we got to get rid of him.
Yeah, you have to. There's no other way to get around it. You have to get rid of one or the other or both. And they did exactly that. And they got exactly what they wanted. They got rid of the problem and they solidified the grift. They did it perfectly. They got it perfectly. So I want to read something here to you before we end this, because this is part of the civil rights bill thing. Okay. So let's read this real quick. I want to make sure oh, crap. Cancel. Here we go. Okay. Let me get this. Boop, boop. Is that big enough there? Okay, good. You can see it okay? After the Civil War, the 15th Amendment ratified in 1870 prohibited states from denying a male citizen the right to vote based on race, color, previous condition of servitude. What year was that? Y'all see that? 1870. Blacks were given the right to vote. 1870. And they still have fools out there that think, oh, the Civil Rights Bill gave us the right to vote.
The Voting Rights Act.
Nevertheless, in the ensuing decades, various discriminatory practices were used to prevent African Americans, particularly those in the South, from exercising their right to vote. During the civil rights movement of the 1950s and 60s, voting rights activists in the South were subjected to various forms of mistreatment and violence. This is what they want you to believe. Meanwhile, there are tons of people that lived in the South that had no issues with it. One event that outraged many occurred on March 7, 1965, when peaceful participants in Selma Montgomery March for voting rights were met by Alabama state troopers who attacked them with nightsticks, tear gas, whips, and they refused to turn back. Some protesters were severely beaten and bloodied, and others ran for their lives. The incident was captured on national television. Was it now? In the wake of the shocking incident, Johnson called for the comprehensive voting rights legislation. Notice the name. In a speech in a joint session of Congress on March 15, 1965, the president outlined the devious ways in which election officials denied African American citizens the vote. Black people attempting to vote were often told by election officials that they had gotten the date, time, and polling place wrong, that they were possessed insufficient literary skills, or that they had filled out application incorrectly. Black people whose population suffered a high rate of illiteracy due to centuries of oppression and poverty often would be forced to take literacy tests, which they sometimes failed. I want to make something abundantly clear to folks. There were a ton of learned Black people, very learned Black people. What they want to emphasize to you here is the ones that weren't. And in that example, you fall for the okey doke. The same way they tell you that Black Wall Street, oh my gosh, they burned down our only Black Wall Street. That's not true. They won't tell you about the other 6 that lived and thrived and had their own thriving community and still have generational wealth to this day. They won't tell you about that. They'll be happy to emphasize for you. The Democrats will loudly proclaim to you that this is exactly what happened and nothing else is true. Johnson also told Congress that voting officials, primarily in the southern states, have been known to force Black voters to recite an entire constitution or explain the most complex provisions of state laws. Now, what does that sound like? Hear me out. If somebody's trying to tell you you need to learn your constitution, wouldn't that be a good thing?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be a good thing? What did the Democrats step in and says? No, they don't need to learn that, which means what? They want you stupid. They want you stupid. Just vote how we tell you to vote. That is what the 1965 bill did for you. It made you complicit in your education. It kept you stupid. It told you don't need to learn about the nothing to do it. You don't need to learn about the Constitution. You don't need to learn nothing about government. Just vote for these people who are going to pass this bill right now. And then you got that other guy, MLK, telling you exactly how you should do it.
Yep. They're passing this bill for you. And these Democrats right here, they're doing it for you. And Black people just do it. See, you know, the Democrats back then, they used to put all this propaganda out there showing things like Selma and other things and talking about how uneducated Black people are. Black people were very educated, very educated. And then they do things and they show you things like they're coming to the rescue of Black people by passing legislation. Why? Because it's all to keep the Black vote, like Marlon stated earlier. They have to keep that Black vote. So they show everything on TV. They happen to show this riot on TV, Black people getting whipped and all this other stuff. Here comes the Democratic Party who voted against civil rights and voting rights and all this stuff for centuries, for decades. Then they come in and save the day. So now Black people are like, oh, the Democrats saved us. Well, and they're all in it together. It's all a show. And then they pass legislation. Next, you know, Black people are walking in line voting. Oh, Democrats took care of us. It was all to keep the Black vote, all of it. And they use Dr. King to do it.
And I'll show you exactly how the Negro was viewed by the Democrats. Okay, as our lasting salvo to end things. 2 platforms. The Democrat platform is for the white man. The Republican platform is for the Negro. This was them. This is how they viewed the Negro.
Yep.
This is still how they view the Negro. Dumb, ignorant. You don't know what you're doing. You can't figure it out. You're going to need this. The same way they tell you, okay, you need ID. Black people can't figure out how to get ID. You can't be asking a nigga to do that. That's crazy. How they gonna figure that out?
Yep. They think we're stupid. Like
they don't have a car. They don't know how to get from work to do none of that stuff.
They don't know how to use the computer. They don't know. They don't. They need our help, and we gotta help them and guide them. And Black people fall for it every time.
Just admit you've been fooled. It's okay to admit that you're a fool. It's not that you willingly gave into it, at least initially. You're a fool.
Yep.
You were lied to, and the lie was well done. It was good. It was crafted well. It made sense. But here's the mark of a true individual that has a functioning brain. You can change your mind.
Yep.
You can see the facts and say, wow, they really think I'm that stupid. Yeah, they do. They do think you're stupid, which is why you'll see many of them tell you when you switch ideas, you a sellout. Which is
Mm-hmm.
why you see people like that old wet face bag Biden tell you if you ain't voting for him, you're not black.
And
You
all
see
the
it?
other black people on the show keep keying and not even calling them out on it.
And if you don't vote Democrat, how you gonna vote against your own interest? What exactly is my own interest?
Mm-hmm.
And they can't tell you that. Well, don't you see the oppression of who? The oppression. You got $1 billion in your pocket. Yeah, but I'm still oppressed.
Yeah.
Mentally.
I mean, you get the black messiah up there before, this last election, telling black people how to vote. That's how low, that's how much they think of you. They don't believe you can make your own decisions and think on your own. So they send the black messiah himself to tell you how to vote. You need to. And what do black people do? Oh, Obama said we got to vote for Kamala. And they just run along and vote for her without even thinking.
Yeah, go figure that one.
But hey, Marlon, I sent a poster to the chat, and this is a movie that I think everyone should watch, and this kind of alludes to what Marlon and I were talking about when black people were in the 1800s, when black people were given the right to vote. And this is a really good movie with Matthew McConaughey, and I think everyone should watch it if you haven't seen it.
He went woke recently, didn't he?
Yeah, but
Unfortunately,
this movie it's really good.
it's the one thing he got right.
Yeah, I think so.
If I
And that
can get
movie
it
where he
right.
was like, all right, all right, all right,
All right, all right, all right.
all right, all right, all right.
This right here, people. And I haven't seen the whole of it, but I saw the first half hour of it. It was
Yes.
really good.
Yeah, so check that one out. Probably Netflix, Prime. It's been around for a while.
The Free State of Jones.
Check it out. It'll show you exactly what happened to black Republicans during that time and how the Democratic Party has always been the party against them. Free thinking black people.
So y'all can take that for what it's worth. We'll continue to read through the documentation. If we find something that requires a urgent update, we'll do so. But come Wednesday, we'll tackle the JFK files, which is going to be very interesting to see exactly what they've said about that, which we probably already know most of it. Because our inquisitive minds, when we are conspiracy theorists, more than likely figure this stuff out from the very get-go, why they did it, but not only why, but who. So, and then once the RFK file drops, we'll do that one. That one might not be as interesting. So we may just cover it partially and then go back into the MLK one.
Yes.
So
the free
prep
cost.
out for that. So we'll be doing another covering of that come Wednesday and Friday. If you haven't gone over to Too Strong yet, go check it out. We're getting a little spicy. We covered the whole Obama with Jennifer Aniston thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe it myself. I think it's a good cover for him screwing the chef, but that's just me.
Big Mike got caught.
Big Mike,
they had to take the chef
he
out.
saw something swinging when it shouldn't have something swinging.
They had to take the chef out. He can't see that. Big Mike.
Big Mike, Big Mike.
I was reading a theory on that. Since we're on that subject, I was reading something about, Matthew Perry. Remember, was it Matthew Perry, the one from Friends that died?
Yeah, the one that died.
Yeah. They're saying that he knew about Obama and Aniston because him and Jennifer Aniston were friends. He knew something, and that's why he's not here anymore.
Picking out Jennifer, not that dude.
Yeah, I'm just saying. You never know.
Obama still needed his little sugar pot. I get it.
He's not who he says he is. So
Obama, I'm gonna say this. The reason I don't believe it because I know Obama gay. He ain't gonna go with no girl. That's all I know. That's all I'm gonna tell you. Gay from birth. He's gonna die that way. That's just me. Anyway, yeah. Look, call it conspiracy or I just don't like the dude. Whatever it is, I don't believe him. Nothing they say. But we'll be back come Wednesday to deal with the JFK files. So stay tuned. If you haven't gone find them yet, go find them because it's out there now. So if you can't say you've been waiting to find out, now it's up to you to go and get the information. But we'll break it down come Wednesday. The Free State of Jones. The Free State of Jones. Go look it up.
Very good. Very good movie.
All right. So we'll catch you guys Wednesday. In the meantime, in between time, go check our stuff out and get our merch. And we'll see you guys then. We out. Peace.
Whoa.